Right now, while you are sitting there watching this, your cells are doing something that most doctors will never explain to you in a 12-minute appointment. They are locked shut. Insulin is knocking and knocking, and your cells are not answering. That is not aging. That is not bad luck, and it is absolutely not your fault. But here is what the system is not telling you. When your blood sugar stays high year after year, what is actually happening has almost nothing to do with carbohydrates. The real problem is upstream. It starts with a hormone. And every treatment that ignores that hormone is treating the wrong thing. I have spent over 2 decades watching people climb the medication ladder. 1 pill, then 2, then insulin injections. And at no point did anyone sit down with them for 30 minutes and explain what is actually happening inside their cells and what they could do about it with food they can buy for less than $2. That ends today. Everything I am sharing with you comes from published research and clinical experience. But before going any further, please continue working with your own doctor. What I am giving you today is information to bring into that conversation, not to replace it. Now, what country are you watching from? Drop it in the comments right now. I read every single one. Here is what almost nobody explains. High blood sugar almost always starts with one thing, a hormone called insulin. Think of insulin as a key, and your cells are like locked doors. After decades of high sugar meals, those locks get jammed. Insulin shows up with the key and the door does not open. So glucose, the sugar that belongs inside the cell where it can be used for energy, just keeps circling in your blood. Your pancreas panics. It makes more insulin, more keys. Still, no doors opening. That is insulin resistance. And here is the part that makes me angry on your behalf. The system's answer to insulin resistance is more insulin. Drugs that push even more of a hormone into a body that is already drowning in it. There is no reimbursement code for teaching you how food talks directly to your insulin receptors. There is no profit in explaining that your cells can start opening their doors again, naturally, within days. I have watched patients come off their second medication within 3 months. I have watched morning fasting numbers that were sitting at 180 drop into the normal range, not by eliminating foods, by adding the right ones. And that is exactly what I am going to walk you through today. 10 foods, each one doing a specific job inside your body. Some slow the flood of sugar coming in. Some cool the inflammation that is jamming your receptors. And some wake those receptors back up so your own body does what it was designed to do. Before the first food on this list, I need to tell you about Sandra. She represents a pattern I have seen dozens of times. 67 years old, retired postal worker from Virginia. She came to me after her doctor told her it was time to start a second blood sugar medication. Her fasting glucose was hovering around 180. She had watched her mother lose first her toes and then her eyesight to this same disease. And she was sitting across from me saying, I do not want to end up like her. I am terrified. I want you to hold on to Sandra's story. Because where she is now is where this entire video is headed. But first, you need to understand the lock that is jamming. Here is what most people get wrong. They hear high blood sugar and they think, cut the carbs. And while reducing refined carbs helps, it treats the symptom, not the cause. The cause is that your cells stopped responding to insulin properly. And what drives insulin resistance is not just sugar, it is inflammation. Chronic, low-grade inflammation that sits beneath the surface for years, physically interfering with the insulin signal at the cell membrane. Cool the inflammation and your cells start listening again. Slow the sugar flood and your pancreas gets a rest. Give your receptors the specific compounds that help them grip insulin more tightly, and the whole system starts working the way it was built to work. That is the logic behind every food I am about to share with you. But here is what I need you to understand before getting to number 1. And I saved this because people need to hear it clearly. This is not about willpower. It is not about discipline. And it is certainly not about being more careful. You have been doing the best you could with the information you had. The advice that failed you was the advice that was given. A standard 7-minute appointment cannot rebuild the foundation of your metabolic health. That is a system problem, not yours. Let us start fixing it. Number 10 on the list today is fenugreek seeds. And I want you to pay attention here because this one surprises people. You can find these at almost any grocery store for under $2. Small, amber-colored, slightly bitter. Most people walk right past them. Here is what they do inside you. Fenugreek is packed with a soluble fiber called galactomannan. When it hits the water in your stomach, it swells into a thick gel. Picture honey slowly spreading through water. That gel physically slows how fast your stomach empties carbohydrates into your small intestine. Slower emptying means sugar trickles into your blood instead of flooding it. No flood, no spike, no panic response from your pancreas. But that is only the first half of what fenugreek does. It also carries an amino acid called 4-hydroxyisoleucine. This compound nudges your pancreas to release insulin more efficiently and helps your muscle cells absorb glucose directly. You are addressing the problem from both directions at once. A 2016 study in the International Journal of Medical Sciences found that participants taking fenugreek seed extract saw meaningful improvements in fasting blood glucose and post-meal spikes compared to the control group. Now, I need to be crystal clear about fenugreek before you start. If you are taking metformin or insulin, fenugreek can lower your blood sugar fast enough that your medication dose may become too high. Talk to your doctor before adding this. Start with 1 teaspoon of whole seeds soaked overnight in water. Drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. If the bitterness is too much, grind them and stir half a teaspoon into yogurt. Give your gut 3 or 4 days to adjust. This one surprised most of my patients more than almost anything else on the list. But if you think fenugreek is underused, wait until you hear number 9, because this next one is sitting in your kitchen right now and almost no one is using the right kind. Number 9 is cinnamon. And yes, you almost certainly already have it. But here is the part that matters. The kind you have is probably the wrong one. Most grocery store cinnamon is cassia cinnamon. It contains a compound called coumarin. In small amounts, no problem. But therapeutic amounts taken daily can stress your liver over time. The one you want is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon. It is milder, it is safer for daily use, and it is the one worth buying. So what does cinnamon actually do at the cellular level? Ceylon cinnamon contains a group of polyphenols, natural plant compounds, that behave almost like insulin themselves. They help your insulin receptors grip glucose more tightly. They slow gastric emptying after a meal. And they activate proteins involved in glucose transport into muscle cells. Research from the Human Nutrition Research Center at the USDA, published in Diabetes Care, found that less than half a teaspoon of cinnamon per day meaningfully lowered fasting blood glucose in adults with type 2 diabetes. The improvement showed up in as little as 40 days. Now here is the practical piece. Use between 1/4 and 1/2 teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon daily. Stir it into your morning coffee or oatmeal. The key is to pair it with a carbohydrate meal. That is exactly when you want your receptors gripping harder. Contraindications to know. If you are on blood thinners like warfarin, coumarin content in cassia cinnamon can increase bleeding risk. Ceylon has significantly less coumarin. Still, let your doctor know you are adding this daily. And if you have liver concerns, stick to half a teaspoon or less. Simple, inexpensive, and it has been sitting in your kitchen the entire time. But the next food on the list, number 8, this is the most underused item in this entire video. And I say that knowing how strong fenugreek and cinnamon are. Number 8 is broccoli sprouts. And I want to be precise here because the distinction matters completely. Not mature broccoli, not broccoli florets, the 3-day-old sprouts, those tiny little shoots that look like alfalfa sprouts. This distinction is the difference between something modestly helpful and something genuinely powerful. Here is why. Broccoli contains a compound called sulforaphane, and broccoli sprouts, those tiny 3-day-old seedlings, contain between 50 and 100 times more sulforaphane than a full head of mature broccoli. Not percent more, times more. That is how much the concentration drops as the plant grows. Sulforaphane does something none of the other foods on this list can do quite as directly. It targets your liver, and here is why that matters for blood sugar specifically. Your liver makes glucose while you sleep. During overnight fasting, your liver releases stored glucose to keep your blood sugar stable. That is normal and healthy. But in insulin resistance, the liver overproduces. It keeps making glucose even when your blood sugar is already high. This is a major reason why so many people wake up with their highest reading of the entire day before they have eaten a single bite. Sulforaphane quiets that overnight factory down. A 2017 study from Lund University in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to people with type 2 diabetes for 12 weeks. Fasting blood sugar came down measurably. The strongest improvements happened in the people whose sugar had been hardest to control. These were not mild responders. These were patients who had struggled most. You can grow broccoli sprouts on your own counter in a mason jar for pennies per serving, or buy them in the produce section. A small handful, roughly a quarter cup, on a salad or a sandwich most days is plenty. Do not cook them hard. High heat destroys the sulforaphane. Eat them raw or barely wilted. Now, if you are finding this information useful, hit like right now. Not for me. Because the algorithm needs that signal to show this to someone else who is sitting there with numbers they do not understand and no one explaining them. That one tap from you changes everything for someone you may never meet. Number 7 is avocado. And I need to address the fear around this one directly because it has cost people real results. For years, people were told to avoid avocado because of the fat content and the calories. And that fear, based on advice that has since been significantly revised, pushed people away from one of the most metabolically friendly foods you can put on a plate. The fat in avocado is predominantly monounsaturated fat, the same family as olive oil, and it does something remarkable at a meal. It slows the entire event down. Think of it this way. Your stomach is like a mixing bowl. Add a starchy food alone, white rice, toast, a potato, and your stomach churns through it quickly. Sugar floods the bloodstream in one wave, but add avocado to that same meal, and the fat physically slows gastric emptying. The glucose from those carbohydrates arrives in your blood gradually instead of all at once. The spike flattens. Beyond that, monounsaturated fat improves insulin sensitivity at the cellular level. Multiple studies have shown that replacing saturated fat with monounsaturated fat helps cells respond to insulin more readily over time. Half an avocado a day is a sensible amount. Put it on your eggs in the morning. Mash it onto whole grain toast. Add it to any salad that already has a starchy component. Anywhere you have carbohydrates, avocado softens the metabolic blow. And here is the practical bonus. Fat and fiber together create lasting satiety. You stop reaching for something an hour later. The craving that drove the afternoon cookie disappears. No specific drug interaction concerns for avocado at normal food amounts. If you are on warfarin, avocado in large quantities can sometimes have a mild interaction with vitamin K. Normal serving sizes are generally fine, but mention it to your doctor. Now, number 6. And this is where the mechanism shifts from slowing things down to directly attacking the root cause. Number 6 is chia seeds. You have probably seen them turn liquid into a pudding-like gel. That is exactly the mechanism at work. Chia is one of the richest sources of soluble fiber available. A single tablespoon carries nearly 5 grams of fiber, most of it soluble. When chia meets water in your stomach, it forms a thick, viscous gel around the carbohydrates in your meal. That gel wraps the sugar and slows its absorption to a crawl. Instead of a spike, you get a slow, steady rise over 2 to 3 hours. Your pancreas never has to panic. But chia does something else. It carries plant-based omega-3 fatty acids called ALA. These compounds help reduce the chronic low-grade inflammation that is interfering with your insulin receptors. Cool the inflammation. And those locked cell doors. A 2019 meta-analysis in Nutrition Reviews, looking at over 4,000 participants across multiple trials, found that regular omega-3 consumption significantly improved insulin sensitivity and reduced inflammatory markers in people with metabolic syndrome. 2 servings per week is the clinical target, about the size of your palm each time. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, and herring are all excellent choices. Bake it, grill it, buy it canned if that is easier on your budget. Canned mackerel and sardines are 2 of the cheapest, most powerful foods in this entire video. If you are on blood thinners like warfarin, high-dose omega-3 supplements can increase bleeding risk. Food amounts of fatty fish are generally considered safe, but worth mentioning to your doctor. If you have a fish allergy, there is an alternative covered at the end of this video. Now, let me come back to Sandra for a moment. She started with the Fenugreek in week 1. Day 4, she sent me a message that said, "I feel like I live in the bathroom now. Too much, too fast." Pulling back to half a teaspoon. Day 7, her body adjusted. By the end of week 2, her fasting reading on Tuesday morning was 178, Wednesday, 169. That was the first time in 3 years she had seen numbers in the 160s. She kept a small blue notebook on her nightstand. She wrote down every morning reading. That notebook became her evidence that something was actually changing. I am telling you this because week 1 is uncomfortable, and most people quit in week 1. They think uncomfortable means wrong. But I want you to understand, the discomfort confirms the shift. Your gut is adjusting. Your system is recalibrating. Push through week 1 and everything changes. More on what happened to Sandra at the end of this video. But right now, number 4. Number 4 is walnuts. And of all the nuts, this is the one I point people toward first. Because of what it does for 2 separate systems at the same time. Walnuts are rich in polyunsaturated fat, including the same plant omega-3 found in chia. But what makes walnuts particularly valuable for blood sugar is their effect on something most people overlook entirely, your blood vessel lining, the endothelium. High blood sugar is corrosive to the thin inner lining of your blood vessels. Over years, it damages that lining. And a damaged endothelium is less responsive to insulin. It also raises cardiovascular risk independently of blood sugar. Walnuts contain specific compounds that actively support endothelial function, helping restore that lining's integrity. Beyond vascular protection, the combination of fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts blunts post-meal glucose rise. They have also been shown to lower fasting insulin, which is the number beneath your blood sugar that tells you how hard your pancreas is straining to compensate. A small handful daily, about a quarter cup or 7 to 10 whole walnuts. Keep them raw or dry roasted, not the candied kind, not the honey glazed kind. Use them to replace a processed snack, not to add on top of one. That distinction matters. No significant drug interactions at normal food amounts. If you have a tree nut allergy, skip this one entirely. But here's what I want you to notice about the pattern so far. Every food covered so far is doing one of 3 jobs: slowing the sugar down, cooling the inflammation, or improving how the receptor responds. And they stack. You are not choosing one. You are layering them, meal by meal, day by day. And the compounding effect is what the research reflects. Number 3 is eggs, whole eggs, yolk included. This one requires me to undo some damage first, because for decades, people were told the yolk was dangerous. Cholesterol concerns, fat concerns. And that advice pushed an entire generation toward sugary breakfast cereals that were catastrophically worse for blood sugar than any egg ever was. Here is the truth. A whole egg is almost pure protein and fat, with virtually no carbohydrate. On its own, it barely moves your blood sugar. That is not an opinion. That is biology. But the real value of eggs at breakfast is something called the second meal effect. When you start your day with protein and fat instead of starch, you stabilize your blood sugar not just at breakfast, but for the entire morning. You walk into lunch with calmer numbers, a smaller glucose response to whatever you eat next. That effect compounds across the day. The protein and fat also create genuine satiety. The mid-morning hunger that sends people reaching for crackers or a cookie quietly disappears. In my experience, swapping a cereal breakfast for 2 or 3 whole eggs is one of the single fastest changes you can make to a morning glucose reading. 2 to 3 eggs in the morning is a solid starting point. Scramble them. Boil a batch for the week. Add some spinach. And if you have already added avocado to your routine, put it right on top. You have just built a breakfast that works with your biology instead of against it. Cholesterol note for full transparency. If you have a history of hypercholesterolemia or your doctor has specifically flagged dietary cholesterol for your situation, discuss egg frequency with them before making daily eggs your new habit. For most people, the research has shifted significantly, but your specific profile matters. Number 2 is apple cider vinegar. And this is the one with the most visible and immediate effect of anything on this list. If you have a glucose meter at home, you can watch this one work tonight. That is not a promise. That is what the research shows. The active compound in apple cider vinegar is acetic acid. It works through 2 simultaneous mechanisms. First, it slows gastric emptying. Your stomach holds the meal longer before releasing it into the small intestine. Sugar enters your bloodstream gradually instead of in a wave. Second, it activates an enzyme called AMPK in your muscle tissue. That enzyme increases your muscle's ability to pull glucose out of circulation and use it for energy. You are clearing sugar from the bloodstream through a non-insulin pathway. Research led by Dr. Carol Johnston at Arizona State University, published in the journal Diabetes Care, found that 1 tablespoon of vinegar taken before a carbohydrate meal reduced the post-meal blood sugar spike by roughly 20 to 30% in people with insulin resistance. 20 to 30%. Let that sit for a moment. That is a drug-sized effect from something that costs a few dollars a bottle. Here is exactly how to use it. 1 tablespoon diluted in a full 8-ounce glass of water, 10 to 15 minutes before your largest carbohydrate meal. Always diluted. Never drink it straight. The acidity is hard on tooth enamel and can irritate your throat if taken undiluted. Critical drug interaction. If you are already taking metformin, insulin, or any blood sugar medication, apple cider vinegar can lower your numbers fast enough that your medication dose suddenly becomes too high. This is not a reason to avoid it. It is a reason to start slowly and let your doctor know you are adding it. Some patients have been able to reduce their medication dose over time as their numbers improve. That conversation belongs with your physician, not with me. If you have gastroparesis, a condition that already delays gastric emptying, this may not be appropriate for you. Discuss with your doctor. Now, before revealing number 1, I need to talk to you about something important that never gets addressed in these kinds of videos. Week 1 is going to be harder than you expect. I am not going to pretend otherwise. If you add fenugreek and chia and apple cider vinegar in the same week, your digestive system is going to let you know about it. More time in the bathroom. Some bloating. Possible mild cramping. This is normal. It is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign your gut is adjusting to a significant increase in soluble fiber. Week 1. Uncomfortable, but manageable. Add just 2 or 3 items. Not all 10 at once. Week 2. Things settle. Your gut microbiome is adapting. Morning readings start showing more consistency. Week 3. This is when most of my patients call, because this is when the numbers start moving in a consistent direction. Not dramatically overnight, consistently downward. Most people experience their first sub-160 fasting reading somewhere in week 3 if they had been running in the 170s. Week 4 and beyond, the compounding begins. Your cells have had a full month of lower insulin demand. The inflammation has started to cool. Receptors that were jammed start responding. Numbers that had been resistant begin to shift. Do not quit in week 1, because what is coming in weeks 2 and 3 is the reason you are watching this video. Most people stop at week 1. And that is exactly why they stay on the medication ladder. The discomfort of week 1 is not evidence that it is not working. It is evidence that it is working. Your body is relearning how to process things it has been mishandling for years. Now, number 1. I teased this at the beginning, and I want to deliver on that promise. Number 1 is lentils, and I know what you are thinking. Lentils are a carbohydrate. How does a carbohydrate lower blood sugar? Here is where this proves everything said about mechanism over simplification. Lentils are built differently from refined carbohydrates. The starch inside a lentil is what scientists call resistant starch, wrapped inside an architecture of soluble fiber and plant protein. That structure is incredibly difficult for your digestive enzymes to break down quickly. The glucose locked inside a lentil is released slowly, over 2 to 3 hours, not in one wave. The glycemic index of white rice is approximately 73. The glycemic index of lentils is approximately 32. You are eating a carbohydrate that your body processes more than twice as slowly. But here is the part that genuinely surprised me when I first looked at the data. Lentils carry the second meal effect. Not just at the meal where you eat them, at the next meal too. Researchers at the University of Guelph in Canada demonstrated that eating lentils at lunch produced a measurably smaller blood sugar response at dinner, even when dinner itself did not contain lentils. The stabilizing effect persists across multiple meals. Replacing white rice or white potato with lentils 2 to 3 times per week is one of the most reliable ways I know to move an A1C, your 3-month blood sugar average, meaningfully downward over 90 days. Half a cup to a cup of cooked lentils is a solid serving. Use them in soup, in a stew, in a cold salad with olive oil and a splash of that apple cider vinegar from number 2. They are filling. They are cheap. They stretch a meal further than almost anything else. No significant drug interactions for lentils at normal food amounts. If you have advanced kidney disease, your doctor may have you monitoring plant protein intake. Check with them. Now, Sandra. I told you about her at the beginning of this video. 67 years old, fasting glucose around 180, terrified of ending up like her mother. Sitting across from me not wanting to start a second medication, she represents a pattern I have seen many times. Not one patient exactly. The pattern. Here is what her next 3 months looked like. Week 1. Fenugreek before breakfast. Ceylon cinnamon in her coffee. Apple cider vinegar before dinner. Uncomfortable. She almost quit on day 5. She did not. Week 2. She added chia to her yogurt every morning. Avocado on her eggs. Her Tuesday morning reading was 162. She texted me a photo of her notebook. 3 rows, Tuesday 162, Wednesday 158, Thursday 155. That was the first week in 3 years she had seen the 150s. Week 3. Fatty fish twice that week. Lentil soup replacing her usual rice on Wednesday and Friday. Her daughter called her. She said, "Mom is smiling in the kitchen again. I have not seen that in a long time." By week 12, working alongside her own physician who was monitoring her numbers throughout, Sandra's A1C had moved from 7.4 into the 6-point range. The direction that had been pointed toward a second medication reversed. Her doctor reduced her first medication dose. And at the 12-week mark, her fasting readings were consistently running between 110 and 125. Now, Sandra's results were on the better end of what I typically see. Not everyone will see numbers like hers. Some people respond faster, some slower. Individual variation is real. What matters is the direction. And the direction in the overwhelming majority of cases points the same way, downward. Let me give you the protocol in one place. 5 starting steps for tonight and this week. Step 1. Tomorrow morning, replace your cereal or toast with 2 or 3 whole eggs and half an avocado. That single swap changes your blood sugar trajectory for the entire day. Step 2. Tonight, soak 1 teaspoon of fenugreek seeds in a glass of water. Drink the water and eat the seeds tomorrow morning before breakfast. Start there. 1 teaspoon, not more. Step 3. Buy Ceylon cinnamon, not cassia, and add between 1/4 and 1/2 teaspoon to your morning coffee or oatmeal starting tomorrow. Continue daily. Step 4. Before your largest carbohydrate meal tomorrow, take 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in a full glass of water 15 minutes ahead. Diluted. Always diluted. Step 5. This week, replace white rice or a white potato twice with lentils. Add fatty fish to your menu 2 evenings. Build from there over the following 2 weeks. Add broccoli sprouts, add chia, add walnuts. Stack them in gradually. You are not removing foods you love. You are adding the foods that protect your system. And if you are on blood sugar medication of any kind, especially insulin or sulfonylureas like glipizide or glimepiride, bring this list to your next appointment. Tell your doctor what you are adding, because these foods can lower your numbers meaningfully. Your medication dose may need adjusting downward as your body improves. That is a good problem to have, but it needs medical supervision. Do not stop any prescription on your own. Bring this conversation to your physician and let them walk the numbers down with you. Now, before you go, I want to ask you something. How long have you been dealing with numbers you did not understand? Type a number in the comments. How many years? I read them. And the answers shape what I cover next. If this video gave you something today, share it with one person. Your mother, your father, your spouse, someone you know who is on that medication ladder and does not understand why. Not tomorrow, today. Because the information that just changed your understanding of your own biology did not come from a 7-minute appointment. It came from 30 minutes of someone explaining the mechanism. And anyone fighting their numbers deserves that same explanation. Subscribe if you want more videos like this. New content every week. And next week, I'm going to show you something that stops many people cold. Because even if you do everything right during the day, your liver may be sabotaging you overnight while you sleep. There is a specific biological reason your fasting number in the morning can be your highest reading of the entire day, even after not eating for 8 hours. And there is a way to address it directly. That is next week. Do not let anyone tell you it is too late, because it is not. References for all studies mentioned today are listed in the description below. All claims in this video are based on peer-reviewed, published research. This channel is for educational purposes and is not a substitute for personalized medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider before making changes to your diet or medication.